Who here was affected by Hurricane Harvey last year? Me too. Harvey was one of the most devastating events to hit Southeast Texas and was one of the costliest and deadliest events in U.S. history. I was personally affected by it when 7 feet of water entered my home, and my family and I lost 90% of our possessions, and we're still out of our house 8 months later. This is a picture of my parents pointing at the 7-foot water line in our house. Hurricane Harvey hit Southeast Texas with incredible force, causing billions in damages, but it also brought together people and organizations and communities all across the nation by helping each other recover. But I think we all knew Texas could take a hit and get back on its feet.
Man.
And now when you consider the immense amount of damage and the 1,000-year flood that it brought to our neck of the woods, you might think Hurricane Harvey was some super hurricane that was expected to wreak havoc on the U.S. from day one. However, Harvey looked like countless hurricanes before it until unfortunate conditions caused it to become the monster we encountered. Now, it began as potential tropical cyclone 9, 300 miles east of Barbados, and it lost strength when it passed over the Yucatan Peninsula on August 23rd, but in the warm waters, it actually regained and regenerated strength into a tropical depression. And by the 25th, Harvey became a Category 3 hurricane, eventually becoming the Category 4 hurricane that made its initial U.S. landfall at Rockport, Texas. And that first U.S. landfall was the first of 3 that it made in a span of 6 days. Then moved on to Houston, where the varying air conditions over the Houston metro area and inside the hurricane itself clashed, which is what it ultimately caused that virtual stalling over the Houston metro area and eventually the Golden Triangle. It continued its journey through the U.S., eventually dropping 10 inches of rain as far as Nashville, Tennessee at the end of its lifespan. Since it was a Category 4 hurricane, you might be surprised at the modest numbers it put up in wind speeds and storm surge, but it did aim to impress in one specific category, being rainfall. The rainfall numbers topped out at 60.5 inches in Nederland and Groves, Texas, and a total of 33 trillion gallons of water was dumped in all. Now, obviously, when any hurricane is headed for the U.S., nobody is expecting to make it out completely unscathed, but no one could have predicted the magnitude of the effects of Hurricane Harvey. The hurricane took an incredible toll on citizens and entire cities, and it was reported that the hurricane cost in all about $125 billion in damages, making it the second costliest event in U.S. history behind Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Over 500,000 homes were damaged, 13,000 of which were completely destroyed. Thousands were without power, and over 1 million vehicles were damaged beyond repair. Now, 30 inches of rain dropped on a portion of Southeast Texas the size of Maryland, causing boil water notices across the state, and many communities were without clean water for weeks, and thousands of businesses and schools were closed, many of which have still yet to be reopened. Hurricane Harvey did bring with it 57 confirmed tornadoes, but they were all EF1 and EF0 class tornadoes. Fortunately, they didn't cause much damage, they caused few injuries, and they accounted for exactly 0 deaths. But the death toll at the end of Hurricane Harvey was up to 88, half of which coming from flood-related deaths, the other half from indirect causes like electrocution and car wrecks. But on a lighter note, over 3,000 people and 5,000 pets were rescued successfully. In the aftermath of all the damage, recovery efforts did have to begin at some point. It's estimated that $121 billion will be needed to fully recover in Texas. 2 of the largest sums of federal recovery money are coming from FEMA and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. FEMA has spent $1.5 billion so far, towards recovery efforts. About $500 million of that has gone to local governments for repairs on damaged infrastructure, and $200 million of that went to the hotel rooms for displaced families. The Department of Housing and Development announced $5 billion will be going to the state of Texas to long-term building efforts. However, exactly zero of that money has been received so far. A couple other major sources of recovery came in the form of donations to Red Cross and NFL superstar J.J. Watt. Red Cross raised a total of $400 million in donations, half of which went to the $400 stipends to the 570,000 households that were damaged. And J.J. Watt, being a player for the Houston Texans, decided to create a fund for Hurricane Harvey victims with the initial goal of $200,000, which he obviously surpassed when he raised $37 million. $30 million of that went to 4 charities of his choice, and $7 million will be distributed in 2018 as needs are analyzed. Many celebrities, including Sandra Bullock and Tyler Perry, donated hundreds of thousands of their own money, and companies like Apple, Toyota, the Houston Rodeo all donated millions of dollars to recovery efforts. Now, even with the help and support from people and organizations all across the U.S., I think if we learned anything from Hurricane Katrina, a full recovery is a very long road. Now, even though Hurricane Harvey was a Category 4 hurricane at one point, it didn't inflict over $100 billion in damages with ungodly wind speeds and massive tornadoes. All it took was some rain. But research has shown with changing climates and with changing climates, there would be a greater incidence of high-intensity hurricanes such as Harvey in the future. And rising sea levels and warmer atmospheres and oceans will cause greater storm surges and higher amounts of precipitation with these future hurricanes. So the question now is, what do we do about it?